had better be important.
Yes, sir. The American agent has infiltrated the X-Lab facility.
Welcome back to the Funker 530 Combat Footage Review. My name is Ronnie. I'll be your host once again. It's good to see you. Do me a favor, drop a like in the chat button, comment stuff. Hey, we're back. We're getting it going. Drop a like, drop a comment in the chat to let me know you're here. We got a lot to talk about. I told you we're going to start opening these a little bit differently. Words are going to be tough tonight, I can tell. I haven't finished my bourbon. But I got a lot that I want to go through. We're going to be seeing footage tonight from Myanmar. We're going to be seeing footage tonight from Mexico and the cartels. We're going to see footage from Ukraine, of course. We're actually going to see some footage from Kuwait right out of the back here in a not-so-friendly fire incident that left 2 killed. But first, I want to say a very big thank you to our sponsor. Our sponsor is, once again, Venture Surplus. Guys, I've told you about this 1,000 times. If you're shopping anywhere for military surplus gear, it needs to be Venture Surplus. They've been continuing to support the channel, the Funker 530 community, by providing a 10% off coupon that you can use, that we don't make any money when you use. It's entirely for you. And it's super easy to remember. Funker 530. That's it. Wow. Crazy stuff. But if you're looking for some of that cool old school LBE gear, load bearing equipment or assault packs, you know, we talk about MREs a lot. I've still got the same MRE sitting next to me. I'm still not going to eat it. But if you want one, they got boxes of them over there and you can get 10% off using Funker 530. But let's get started for today. I want to take you to Kuwait. And I don't know exactly where this takes place in Kuwait, but during a night fire exercise, a friendly fire incident involving training APF SDS, armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabot rounds, resulted in the deaths of 2 Kuwaiti tankers, and 2 were injured. This is the footage of that incident. Hold on. Time out. Pause. We've still got music playing in the background here, and I need to kill it. We'll get around to it. We'll get there. Where's the button? There it is. Back to the footage. Again, this is a training round. Supposedly left 2 dead. Now, I've heard this from tankers before, right? There's oftentimes a propensity to kind of laugh at training and footage of training, like, oh, they're just in training, they're not in combat. These training APF SDS, armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabot, are quite honestly nothing to mess around with. That tank specifically would be an M1A2K, K being Kuwait, I think is the why they put the K on there. An export model doesn't have some of the capabilities that some of our M1A2s would. Really not going to be far off from the M1A1 SAs that Ukraine is running. Not far off being a relative term. I want to move over to Flaming Dragon, or Falcon Wings. We're moving to Myanmar. I think they called themselves Falcon Wings, and specifically we're going to go here. Check in on our favorite commies. This is going to be anti-junta forces in Myanmar. Battalion 1006 here, getting hit by drone-dropped munitions. I said Flaming Dragon because that's all I can think of when I see names like Falcon Wings. So the anti-junta forces. I'll let that play for a second. Falcon Wings. We are Flaming Dragon. The anti-junta forces, anti-junta, are and have continued to be fighting back against the military authoritarian regime that took power back in 2021. We've talked about this quite a bit. We've covered quite a bit of the footage here. This is a base of some kind that you're seeing. And that's a drone-dropped munition landing in a little cluster of gathering there. Oh. All right, let's bring it back up. I did not put that edit in there. I want to flip the coin over, though, and take you to the military and one of their one of their airstrikes. We're going to be headed here into Bamo, this building specifically. So this is effectively the military authoritarian regime that took over, dropping air-delivered munitions on anti-junta forces. Anti-junta. I know it's junta for, like, certain languages, but is it always junta? Is it sometimes junta? It's a big airstrike. Junta. 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 That's an interesting soundtrack. All right, let's bring it up. Staying on that same side of the coin, we've got another strike on the PDF. We're just going to start calling them the PDF, which are the anti-government forces, the commies. That's what they are, you know. We have another strike that takes place here, not far across town. And that footage is coming up for you now. They have a kick-ass soundtrack. Hi, Larry. I see you. This strike is supposedly on the Artillery Battalion 366 of the Kachin Independence Army, which is technically the military arm of the Kachin Independence Organization. They are allied with the PDF. To be honest, I tried doing a little bit of research into the different factions and belligerents, and it's pretty confusing. It's not quite as confusing as the Syrian Civil War, or to be honest with you, the cartel maps, but there's a lot of them. There are about 15 different sub-factions of factions. For those that have been following it a little bit closer than we have, they can probably boil it or distill it down into just a couple, but I certainly am not able to. Anti-government forces versus the government that took power in 2021. That's what we're going to boil this down to. Now, discretion advised on this next one. We're going to flip the coin back over one more time and take a look at the PDF. Discretion advised once again. Flip-flops, AKs that continuously jam, and casualties. Inflicting casualties using flip-flops and AKs that continuously jam. There's, once again, talking about propensities and habits of people. There's a habit for people to kind of make fun of kit and gear. Well, you can get yeeted by a dude in flip-flops just as easily as you can by a dude wearing cry pants. I'm going to show you proof of that. Here's the footage. That's loud. That's so loud. Look at this bad boy right here. Was that an A1? Does it have, hold on, does it have a forward assist? Yes, it does. There's a forward assist on there. So that, what would that be, an A2? Because the originals, help me out, the original M16, the A1, did not have a forward assist. And I think that's what they ended up adding with the A2. I could be mistaken on that. Don't take that for gospel. Just something to think about. Look at that thing, though. Oh, this guy's my favorite. You gotta load that a little bit. By the way, AKs don't jam. Would you like me to rewind it? Or... So they do. Typically, AKs will jam because of ammunition, primarily. That does happen. Okay. I wouldn't... 5.56 out of a 20-inch barrel is not to be trifled with, by the way. Is this in Africa? This is in Myanmar. But not often. Yeah, see, well, we went from that it doesn't happen to now it doesn't happen often. Which one is it? I'm confused here. Who's the good guys and bad guys? Well, let's talk about that, actually. Let's talk about that right after this video. Love the A1. We think it's actually an A2 because it has a forward assist. Close enough, though. Hey. What's going on there? Oh, I'm trying to clear a malfunction on that AK. That's weird. What? A1 had a forward assist first. Did it, Panzer? Helpful. A1 has a forward assist. So I think that's the differentiation. So that's what I was asking earlier. The original M16, I remember the original issue M16 didn't have one. Was the A1 the introduction of the forward assist, or was that the A2? That's my question. Oh, I kick that to you guys. Don't worry, I'll answer that question. Who does the U.S. side with in this? I'll answer that as well. Just want to finish this out. What are they shooting at? You're going to see. You can actually see it right there. So if you pay very close attention to this part of the video here, they're assaulting across this field against the authoritarian regime. Pay very, very close attention to that spot right there. If you can see my mouse. You got right to left movers there. That's who they're engaging. Once again, discretion advised. All right, let's bring it up. Let's talk about that. Somebody asked the question, who's the good guy here? That suggests that there is always, technically speaking, a quote-unquote good guy. Good being relative and culturally dependent, moral compass dependent. So let me explain the two different belligerents. And there are more than two. This is another situation where you have a loose collection of rebel-type forces that are fighting against their government. Now you have the junta, or junta, or junta, whatever. I've heard it called many different things, but it is effectively a military authoritarian regime that enacted a coup in 2021. On the flip side of that, you have what are known as the People's Democratic Forces. Now, these folks absolutely fly the communist flag alongside other, like the Kachin, I think their name is, military forces. They very, very much so are not necessarily the democratic type forces that their name sounds. A little bit different. So effectively what you have is you have people, though, fighting back to get some semblance of democracy from this authoritarian regime that took power over the quote-unquote democratically elected civilian-led government that was in place previously. We've covered that in a little bit more depth. Relative to who the United States supports here, generally speaking, the United States has expressed support for the People's Democratic Forces. Again, these are kind of communists that are attempting to take their country back. Depends on how you look at that relative to support. Support can mean many different things. It can mean verbal support. It can mean monetary support. It can mean the provision of arms. It can mean many, many things. What I find to be most interesting is one of the most prolific uses of 3D printed firearms is actually in Myanmar. So the PDF, the People's Democratic Forces that are fighting back against that government, one of their primary arms that they use is the FDC-9, a very, very prominent 3D printed firearm blueprint. Anyway, that's everything that I had for you guys from Myanmar. I wanted to show you a little bit of footage out of Mexico in the cartels. We have quite a long Ukraine section tonight. And first, we're going to see some footage out of Culiacan. This is reported to be fighting between La Chapiza and La Maiza. I don't know which one of those is which. I don't know the nuance between those two. I was actually just on a video call with Cappy, and we were basically explaining to each other that it was like an alphabet soup of different organizations that fall under the cartels, and it's kind of a new arena, to be honest with you. So as we get more enveloped in covering the footage of cartel activity, I expect to, by extension, learn a little bit more about who is who. But until then, your guess is as good as mine here. But this is more or less cartel on cartel violence. Got more for this. It's a series of videos here. Next one coming up here. Very short though. You can hear gunfire in the background. All right. And then I think there might be one more. Yeah. So discretion advised. This is a little bit of aftermath of all of that fighting. At least I understand it to be. And there are deceased in the video. Here's the footage. You can see the holes in the Rubicon windshield there. See those? Okay. One of the main pieces of footage I wanted to cover tonight must have been deleted by its original poster. Let me see if I just pasted it poorly. Yep, it appears it's been deleted. That sucks. So what it was, I'll describe it to you, was the Mexican army rolling up a cartel armored vehicle. And now this armored vehicle looked like something fresh out of Mad Max. Really wild stuff. Underneath of it was probably some form of like a Ford Expedition, Ford Explorer, some kind of SUV that had then been bolted or had armor plating bolted all around it with a roof-mounted MG of some kind. It was kind of wild stuff, and I wanted to show that to you. Let's actually move kind of to an intermission for a second. I want to show you guys some footage from the Congo. I'm going to show you what not to do with your mortars. So this is the DRC, and this is a general. A general of the Wazalendo militia. Wazalendo, otherwise known as the VDP. These are not necessarily good guys. We'll just put it that way. There's an entire write-up on this one. I believe it came from Cole. I'm going to paste that in the chat for you guys if you want to go read about these folks and what's going on here. But here's the footage of this general running this mortar.
On avec le général Moussa Chimirai Guido. Nous sommes à Petit. Foto! Destination! Bombe! Leta bombe! Wa bombe! Bombe! Besa bombe! Moussa Chimirai Guido. En tout cas, mon général, au président de la synergie.
At this point, any work that this dude had done to get this mortar on the target is all a wash, right? What you would need to do is set that base plate. So Will Kilmore, you guys know his work here at Funker 530. He is a former mortarman, and he talks a lot about mortars. Anything that we can find that's mortar related, we typically will kick to him. Basically, that base plate would be pressed way down in the ground with something weighing it down so that when it fires, it doesn't kick out, change the angle of the mortar, and then it's just kind of generally off in a sort of direction that way. More. I wonder if we have captions on this. I actually don't see any bag charges or cheese on that either. He's reciting it now. I think kind of just still a general angle it up and send it that way. So if you look at this mortar round, yeah, there's no bag charge on that. So it's really just going to be the propellant that the mortar itself has. Hey, oh, geez. So when it's not secured to the ground, though, just like if you were to lay your barrel on a barricade when you're firing at, firing precision rifle, anything like that, even the action of that kicking back is going to drastically change your point of impact. regardless of what you had set your sights to. All right, let's bring it up. We're going to pause for a second. I need to say thank you to all of these resubs and such. And it looks like there were 5 gifted from Mosen. Thanks very much for that, brother. Demo, thank you for the 18 months as a beast. Calico Jack, 35 months as a member. Draconian It, thank you for the 35 months. FKDHJ, FGHS, a lot of letters there. Thanks very much for 32 months. Mike Check, thank you for the 2 months. Appreciate that, sir. Both as beasts. Thank you. Stevie, thank you very much for the 26 months. We're going to head into our Ukraine footage that I have for tonight, and it's actually quite a substantial amount of footage. That's why we kind of burned through these other sections early. We're going to be starting in Donetsk tonight, where we have, discretion advised, some footage of, we're going to see a bunch of motorcycle stuff tonight. But we're headed to here. Where we're going to see footage of Russians on motorcycles getting hit by what are likely FPV munitions, if I remember correctly. I had this one jotted down earlier in the week for us to cover. Here comes the footage. I have the sound off. More than likely there's music. We'll try it. Yep. C, thank you very much for the 2. Appreciate that. Oh no, we've got indirect fire there. That was no FPV drone. Artillery of some kind. They're going to unass that spot. They're in the impact area. Tear off across this wide open field. They left behind a bunch of their dudes, though, because they were like 6 or 7 dudes deep. A couple of them might be 2 up on the bikes. I can't really tell. At least a couple of the guys that were left behind. They are getting after it, though. God, think about this drone. Think about the capability that this drone is providing right now. Just following them the whole way in. Oh, those guys wipe out, or what happened there? What happened? I can't tell what happened. I think they just fell. Whoop. Difficult to tell if that's FPV or not, because all that extra dust, smoke, etc., that could be thrown up by the FPV drone if it was one. That would be some pretty accurate, yeah. There's another one there. So there's a guy out here. He's now on foot. There's a guy right there on foot. Yeah, oh, nope, he's still on his bike. He's going to nope out of there. That's a drone drop munition. This guy probably took some frag off of that one there. This guy's got some kind of damage to his hand, maybe. I should have given you discretion on this one, guys. I'm sorry. Because this is just going to be a follow-up. Yeah, we're not interested. All right, let's move on to our next one. This one's crazy. So I am only including this one because it's motorcycle stuff. And that one was motorcycle stuff. I don't know exactly where this takes place, but what you're going to see here is another Russian team on dirt bikes. And they are going to be just getting after it down this long stretch of road that is very heavily populated by anti-personnel mines. So those anti-personnel mines are going to start wreaking havoc on that dirt bike column. What's also happening, though, is they're also receiving small arms fire and indirect fire. Here's that footage. That's indirect.
Слазь. Ты чё въёбываешься в меня, блядь? Разбегаемся быстрее. Да ты уебаешь, что ли, нахуй? Тихо. Скинь его, давай, вставай быстрее. Давай, быстрее. Прячемся куда?
Now, right at the end there, you can barely hear it.
Куда?
That was indirect, coming in. So again, most of those munitions, it appeared to me, at least, were like this one coming up here. This looks very much like anti-personnel mine, maybe one of those PFM-1s or toe poppers, the butterflies. Maybe something a little bit bigger. That's probably bigger than those butterflies are. But that road is just littered with them. We have Russian TOS-1A fire in Chasiv Yar. Taking you to the map here. This next video is going to take place here. Pulling out a little bit just so you can see at least the current estimate of the forward line of troops from UA Control map. Always doing my best to shout them out because I continue to use their map. I think they keep it the most updated that I've seen, at least with reference to being able to see the last known locations of units. If I were to turn that layer on, that would be something that you'd be able to see. I have that layer off because it helps the map run a little bit better, but I'm happy to turn that layer on. Anyway, we're headed right down to here, where we're going to see from a high-level Russian drone what is at least reported to be TOS-1A thermobaric MLRS fire. That video is coming up for you guys now. There we go. Here you are. I don't know why the captions always say that. We'll be right back. It's weird. Are those thermobaric? That's what it was reported to be. It doesn't look far off based on the other footage we've seen of the thermobaric stuff. Heavy explosion. a lot of heat. Because we're looking through thermal right now. So the thermal signature on that is extremely bright. All right. Let's move down to Toretsk. Let me show you Toretsk right now on the map. Because Toretsk itself is has more or less been captured by Russia. So we're headed to here. This is a relatively new section, though. I would say within the last week. This uncontrolled area reported by UA control map. Whereas previously in other streams, we have seen Russian advances encompass a little bit more of Toretsk. We've seen footage right up here. If you guys recall it, we saw a vehicle coming all the way down here with some Ukrainians on it. They hopped out and climbed into this house here. But the video that I want to start with might help set expectations on the kind of footage I am seeing out of Toretsk right now. Basically, this is more or less all of the footage, geolocatable at least, that's coming out of Toretsk. These are all Ukrainian drone drops. And at least in Toretsk, somebody will say something stupid like, why don't we see any Russian drone drops in Toretsk? Well, because Russia holds the ground. So what we're going to see out of Toretsk is more Ukrainian drone drops on Russian positions. All right. Let's bring it up. Now, there is some footage that is reported to be from Toretsk that we can watch. This is a little bit dated, I think. It's difficult to know when it was released or when it takes place, but this is reported to be in Toretsk. It's kind of a compilation of GoPro footage. So, one way or another, it is prior to at least Toretsk falling, but could be in that uncontrolled section that UA control map is reporting. I just can't validate any of that because I can't geolocate it. Here you are. It's unfortunate that there's music behind the combat footage sound there. We're just going to deal with it. That is plastic explosive he just threw in there.
Yes.
All right. And then a little bit more. This one is certainly dated because of where it takes place, which once again is here. This was actually the point that I gave you. And I say that this one is dated just because of all the reports that came out with it. This is long before today, wherein we see this kind of gray area that was not always there. All right. Now, what's interesting to me on this one is this next video that we're going to watch is just going to be a Ukrainian soldier firing an MG5 from this building into this building. Okay. From this building into that building. I'm wondering if this is more recent footage than I am tracking and that it itself is the reason that we're seeing UA control map look like this. We're the footage guys, man. I'm doing my best to keep track of as much context to the footage as I can. I do know that this is geolocated to that position, but when exactly it was released, I can't tell you. Let's take a look at the footage, though. Coming up for you now. A lot of green leaves? Yeah. Yep. Some, at least. More than there should be right now. That's why I say I think this is dated. All right, let's bring it up. Now, I have a Russian assault, a successful assault, if I do recall correctly, on Novosilka. This takes place here. So I do believe that they travel up along these roads, across some of these fields and into the town. And at one point, I believe their vehicle gets hit, if this is the one that I'm thinking of. That one might not come until later. But tanks leading the columns, reportedly, they have electronic warfare assets deployed on them. That's just what the Russian source said that reported it. I don't know. I can't tell which pixel would be an electronic warfare implement or not. Here's the footage. A Russian assault on Novosilka. That very first vehicle being a T-Series tank of some kind, it's firing off to the left side of the screen there. It's going to fire again here. I swear. I promise. Maybe. Don't make me a liar, bro. There we go. They're going to make their way all the way up into that first row of houses, buildings. Tank turned around, and it looks like no, never mind. I thought it was going to pull like rear security or something. No, it's going to bebop off this way on its own. Continuing to fire, though. Pixels are hard to see, but you can see dismounted Russian infantry here getting out into these houses. The tank is continuing to push down through those houses, though, and engage, kind of occupy, provide support to the infantry that's taking hold of this ground. It's kind of blurry. Is that a tank or a Subaru? Well, it could be a Subaru with a 125 millimeter gun on top of it, I guess. I don't know. You're not wrong. There's nothing I can do about the video quality. Brother, sorry. Tank making its way back, moving way too fast. That's indirect artillery. So there's little dots moving around there. That's the dismounted infantry kind of moving to take positions in these houses. And then if I'm not mistaken, all these vehicles just kind of, unass and get on out of there. Something that's interesting to me is this is a pretty common technique that we see both Russia and Ukraine doing, effectively using all of their armor as heavily armored taxis. Rather than staying and supporting infantry and continuing to hold ground, they drop them off in small numbers, go back, refit, gather up more troops, and then bring them back. Let's move on to the next one. I got video of a tank. Coming up for you right now. We're going here on the map. I don't know why we're going all the way back up there. Why are we going back? Oh, we're moving north now because we will be ending in Kursk and Sumy. We're going to have a conversation about Sumy and what was reported to be happening versus, I don't know, the only thing we can see that's happening. Anyway, we're going to be going here, and we're going to see a tank firing at, I want to say this one is the one. No, wow. Wowie wawa. So I screwed something up there. So the Bradley is actually supposed to be here. And I think I copy-pasted the lat long poorly. And then the hit locations, I believe, yeah, are there. So the Bradley tank is going to be out in this field here. It's going to be engaging with its 25 millimeter Bushmaster. This location is going to make its way to about the halfway point, drop off some infantry, and in the process of dropping off infantry, it's going to get hit by something, whether an FPV drone, anti-tank guided munition, something. But infantry does appear to survive, and then they kind of start following the Bradley out, but there's a jump cut of the Bradley continuing to unass the area, and I have no idea where the infantry went. So that's it. Here's the footage. Here's the Bradley here. You see it engaging with HEIT, high explosive incendiary trace. Just generally that away. Will you be reading my previous super chat? Yes, I will be jumping into those here in a minute. And there's that impact after dismounts started making their way out of the vehicle. And they stack up on the outside of it, and they start to follow the vehicle here, staying behind it as cover. But I don't know what happens. At a certain point, we're going to have a cut here. And I can't tell if they get back into it or, I don't know. I don't know. All right, let's come back up. I want to pause here, and I'm going to get to some of this support in the on the super chats, guys. And thank you very much for it. The stream is always and will forever be free. You know, the few extra dollars here and there is well above and beyond, and just I don't have any other words than a thank you. Who's popping? Will you be reading my previous super chat? Yes, I do my best to read every single one of them. Thank you for the 253. I do my best to. That's not me saying that I will forever and always be able to do that. I don't know what I don't know. There could be one that comes across that I missed, or two, or three, but I do my best. Mike check. The Bradley's a tank. Fight me. I'm fighting with you, bro. I will die on top of that mountain. It's a tank. We can have that fight. Absolutely. Thank you very much for the $20, bro. So much. Who's popping? Thanks very much for the 253. You can't support Trump and Ukraine. Make a choice. That's stupid. It would have been, that would be stupid if somebody is just as stupid as if somebody said you can't support Biden and guns. Joe Biden hates guns. Don't believe anything otherwise. When all of your beliefs fit neatly into one political party, they're no longer your beliefs. I don't have to, nor should I agree with everything that any politician does, regardless of which party they're subscribed to. There are some recent statements by Trump that are categorically false, provably false, without any play on that whatsoever. However, there are other things that he does as president of the United States. Again, I don't do team and party politics. Stop trying to put me in a box. Just not going to happen, man. Thank you very much for the 253, sir or madam. C, thank you for the $2. Happy birthday, Ronald. Thanks very much for that. Let's continue moving through the footage. We have Ukrainian SOF. This is reported to be Neptune Special Operations Forces. This takes place here. Again, this is another one of those that I don't really know the release date on this. It's also in black and white, so I can't tell, the season. The trees don't look like they have a lot of vegetation on them, but anyway, here you are. We're going to go ahead and play the music on this one. Just hucking grenades down in there. It's the best way to do that. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair, battle. Yeah, trees are just kind of blasted apart as it is anyway. Friendly casualty there. They're dragging back into relative safety. It looks like, so I think this is a continuation of earlier portions of the footage, and it looks like it's a friendly, based on uniform, that had potentially been hit by, he's got some blood all over his face there. He's buried a little bit in the rubble here, in these bricks. Potentially hit with some kind of a artillery strike or drone that reduced his structure that he was in. I'm not sure.
Не будешь обмануть, мы сказали вас обмануть. Ты слышал? Не будешь слушаться, обмануть.
Insane levels of TBI. I think that's something that I don't think a lot of people quite understand. If you look at the rate of American troops in the global war on terror and TBI relative to troops in combat, or troops in contact, when you have something that's this kinetic from an indirect fire's perspective from a FPV drone perspective, I'd be willing to bet, I'm going to throw a dart at a dartboard here. I would be willing to bet for a, standard frontline troop, soldier, infantryman, your chances of coming out of there with a TBI are somewhere above 90%. Just my guess. Going off script, I don't have one, but going off script for a second, that's kind of footage that I really do think provides a whole lot of value to people trying to better understand what's going on at ground level. One of the things that makes it very difficult to do what we do at Funker is the continuous and perpetual FPV drone footage. Like, yeah, absolutely. When we get to see a perspective like this, very kind of raw, it's showing them taking casualties, which is going to happen, right? It's showing them engaging, which is going to happen. That provides that real innate context that we're always looking for, and which is the fundamental reason that Funker 530 does what we do, right? There are some that will confuse our mission with like a live leak. And there's a reason that when you go to our website and you click on Ukraine, there's now a category landing page that talks a little bit about the war in Ukraine, then has major the major battles that will eventually be clickable, and all of the videos archived into separate areas. There's a difference with the way we try to archive footage. It provides context, it provides value in new TTPs, in the realities of war. And that's really good footage. That provides a whole lot of value to the viewer to understand what Neptune is going through right now. All right. I showed you earlier a Ukrainian-operated tank. It was Bradley. Supporting infantry and getting hit. Now I'm going to show you a Russian tank supporting infantry and getting hit. Here you are. So it looks like these dudes were riding on top of the tank across that field. They go to dismount, and there come the FPV drones. Should have given you a discretion advised on that one. It's my bad. Tank coming back in here. I don't know where exactly this takes place. I know it was reported as Donetsk. And let's bring it back up. Where are we at here? Let me pause for a second and get to a couple super chats, I think. Mosin, thanks very much for the 10. All I know is Fat Electrician Donut, Brandon Herrera were drinking White Claws in the Pentagon this week. I saw that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Love that. I'd like to drink a White Claw in the Pentagon. I've been in the Pentagon and I didn't have a White Claw, but it sounds way cooler than when I was there. Doug, what's up, man? Thanks for the 29 months as a member. Appreciate that. John Maxwell, thanks very much for the $5. Ronnie's my favorite super chat reading journalist. I will time your ass out. I will. But thank you very much for the 5. Appreciate that. And Trouble Actual, thank you very much for the $2. Serious? Question mark? What's the defense against drones? In what context? There are plenty of defenses against drones. It depends on whether or not they're employed, whether or not, at which layer of the defense you're talking. Are you talking about permanent, semi-permanent, mobile, manpack? There are a lot of different defenses with drones, and there are actually a lot of them that are being employed to great efficacy in Ukraine. What we don't see is a lot of footage showing them being used because, hear me out, the primary footage we see coming out of Ukraine is successful drone footage. We're not going to see a lot of the unsuccessful stuff. We will tonight. I have a whole supercut of unsuccessful drones and drone strikes that we're going to watch. But you're not going to see that as prevalent as the successful stuff. So you're almost looking at this, I wouldn't say from an exception perspective, but you're seeing a saturation of something that is lending to the belief that there is no defense from it. Let's be clear. The primary casualty producer right now in Ukraine remains artillery. It remains artillery. Drones are doing a lot. They are changing a lot, and we are introducing a new capability, less about the direct FPV strike capability, right? And the real novelty to drones is surveillance. Your LRS teams, they are able to extend themselves while mitigating risk of not having to go that much further. Forward observation. Yes, FPV drones are absolutely able to take out a tank, but there is actually a high efficacy rate of anti-drone jamming, right? The difference is you're seeing more successes because that's what people are going to publish, frankly. Let's move on. And thanks very much for that. I appreciate you so much. In Luhansk, we have a Brazilian volunteer. This is the Sarabiansky Forest in Luhansk. This looks like an MG374, I think. I think it was initially reported as a 42. The fire rate is certainly not high enough to be a 42. And quite a few 74s were provided to Ukraine. Now, the MG3 flat out, I think Italy provided quite a few of those as well. One way or another, probably an iteration of the MG3 here, operated by a Brazilian volunteer fighting on behalf of Ukraine. Dated footage, certainly. Remember, we're an archive, so there will be times that we review footage that might not be newsworthy, but that we haven't necessarily covered before. That's incoming. FAL? Not quite. Actually, that one might be. Yeah, he hasn't gotten to the MG yet. That is an FAL. There he is. Yeah, what do you... Absolutely go for the MG, brother. Let her eat.
Okay, siga, play. Plus.
Dog. Bro. Oh no. Let's talk about that for a second. So, ensuring all the equipment, he can't get that thing running. So I reviewed this up to the point that he picked up the MG. I did not watch past that. So when's the last time that thing was function checked? When, you know, yikes.
No, that's cool. Hold up the door.
All right. Yeah, you've got your force multiplier right there, right? Your MG, your light machine gun. Would that be a light machine gun? That would be a general purpose machine gun. What's the MG3? General purpose, or that's not light? Anyway, you have a casualty producer there, and that would be something that you would be checking regularly, taking the belt out, checking feed tray, just making sure that it's in running condition for that exact problem. Yeah. Let's move to Kharkiv, where I have an interesting one. If you guys could help me in my campaign to get, this generally is going to take place here, just so you know. If you guys could help me in this campaign that I want to start, not necessarily here, more actually from probably like about here, to please stop having the machines fight the machines. They're going to remember this, and it's not going to go in our favor, okay? GPMG, yeah, general purpose gun, yeah, okay. U.S. troops don't have a lot of experience in cold weather fighting, do we? Question mark. Well, I would check on the 10th Mountain. I would check on the folks that are a part of, they're in Alaska. The 11th Army, right? Hold on. Alaska Army Corps. Who is it that's up in Alaska? I want to say it's the 11th. Anyway, yeah, we absolutely do have troops that specialize in cold weather fighting. Definitely do. All right, let's head to Sumy. So this one's interesting. So Putin, about 3 at this point days ago, said that, first of all, I'll take you to the map because that'll be helpful. We'll take a look at Kursk. So Putin said a few days ago that Russian troops had assaulted into Sumy, and there was a major new offensive there. Nobody has seen any footage of that. What I'm going to show you next is actually footage that is reported to be them trying to. If there is footage of this major assault into Sumy, let us know, and I'll happily cover it here on the show. But here are 2 Russian BMD-2s attempting to cross the border between Russia and Sumy Oblast. Those 2 BMD-2s getting disabled, and then their dismounted infantry having to unass the area on foot. Directly opposite of Kursk. Yeah, that's why I wanted to show Kursk. And we're walking back to base now. Now, again, if I haven't seen the geolocation for this, I hunted for it up and down. But if I understand correctly, this is effectively the borderline between Russia and Ukraine, Sumy Oblast specifically. So they're moving along. They hit what appear to be potentially remote laid mines, or they got hit by FPV drones. It doesn't really provide a whole lot of information on how exactly they did. There's an explosion there, I think. Yeah. So Ukraine might have mined that spot. But they don't make it across. And then they hot foot it back to base. But what's interesting is the confidence that Putin relayed. My troops are already entering Sumy. You know, we're advancing on all fronts. Not that one, at least. So let's move to Kursk, actually. This is an interesting one. I tweeted this one and got a ton of interesting feedback. This takes place here. Well, at least sort of. There's going to be a big column of Russians moving this way on an assault. I'm going to show you the footage, and then we're going to talk about it while it happens. Ton of interesting comments. I guess I could have used our link to that. Anyway, here you are. Very large assault on the area in Kursk that Ukraine is currently occupying. Pay attention to those flags. Should have given you a discretion advised on that one. I apologize. Let's chat about this for a second. Because one of the comments was super interesting to me. Didn't mean to just kind of cover that one twice. So that is certainly the flag of the USSR. It's the Soviet flag. It's the hammer and sickle. Once again, waving in the breeze in Kursk. When I posted this one to Twitter, I just thought that was interesting, right? They're flying a Soviet flag. There's an argument that goes around that says, well, Russia, they're not communist Soviet Russia anymore. They're Russia, and they're not commies. Okay. One of the comments said very specifically, it's a lot like people in the South flying the Confederate flag, where they're thinking back to the good old days. And I thought that was the craziest thing to say, because in either context, that is wild to think about. What good old days? Interesting. Let's move on. That was a comment. You're welcome to go check our Twitter. It's on there somewhere. We have a Ukrainian strike. Takes place here. This is possibly a JDAM. It was reported to be a JDAM. It's a big explosion. Looks big enough to be a JDAM? I don't know. But that's where it took place. Not to redirect, though. Speaking to the Confederacy and the Civil War, something I've spent a lot of time. I have a habit of audiobooks. I'm a huge, huge fan of audiobooks, and a series of books that I've been reading, I'll give them to you in order, started with a book called Rebel Yell. If you ever wanted a bit more and deeper context on one of the Civil War's most prominent generals, Thomas J. Jackson, I strongly recommend reading or listening to Rebel Yell. It's a fantastic lens into Thomas Jackson's life. Follow that up by a book called Hymns of the Republic. It's a really great kind of two-part there. Rebel Yell will take you all the way up, of course, to his death. And then Hymns of the Republic kind of picks up around there, or at least fills in some gaps with a wider lens on the Civil War from both perspectives. And right now, I'm currently working through Grant, the story of Grant's life. All fantastic reads or listens, if you are wondering what I've currently got on my audiobook playlist right now. Let's move on. We've got a Ukrainian M113 getting bopped around by FPV drones. This is going to take place here. Here comes that footage. I told you we had a long Ukraine section tonight. This looks like a fiber optic drone to me. Feed is too clean. Yeah, that's what leads me to believe it's fiber optic. I should have given you a discretion. Some of these were put on early in the week. Got some deceased there. Fast AF for a fiber. Yeah, that's interesting. See those power lines there? That's an interesting nuance to think about. So thinking past the face value of the footage is something that I always talk about wanting to do more and people to do more. As a drone operator, we see these things zipping around the battlefield, but when you have a fiber optic drone, you remember you've got that cable sticking out of the back of it. So even the comment in the chat made a good point. You move that thing around too fast, you're going to split your cable. Those power lines could be a hazard to your drone. You're going to have to navigate those a different way than you would. Thinking in those layers beyond the footage, those are the kinds of things that I think more people should do, because that's when we start to get a better understanding of context surrounding the footage. I don't know. Maybe that's a moot point and nobody gives a shit about stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I think about. Speaking of fiber optics, though, this is reported to be 2 fiber optic strikes on a Bradley. Now, typically, as was just alluded to, the giveaway on fiber optic drones is how clear the footage is. And that's because you don't have to worry about a real distant remote connection if there's any electronic warfare in the area that's interfering with the feed. You have a hardwired connection to it, so none of that is going to impact your video. Here is that footage of the Bradley. It looks to be disabled or abandoned in some way. There's fresh snow on the ground around it. Well, maybe not so fresh. It does look like it rolled in this snow here. You got footsteps or footprints in the snow around this outside of it. Cope Cage Bradley. Well, we watched footage about a week ago, maybe the week before, where a Cope Cage did stop an anti-tank guided munition and the Bradley drove away. So they work, subject to the munition. Focusing on tracking it there. That's interesting. Well, that was a different vehicle entirely. What is that? Ah, they're just taking the tires out on it. Yep. All right. Coming up. Discretion advised. We also have fiber optic strikes on Ukrainian infantry here. Don't have a geolocation for this one. Now, what we're seeing here is a recording of a recording, if I understand correctly. So imagine somebody recording a screen with their phone, for example. And we had already seen a portion of that earlier. I've been seeing the questions about North Korean troops. And while I don't have anything necessarily to relay about North Korean troops themselves, there are plenty of reports of how many have been killed versus how many are left and what they're doing now. I try to base as much as I can off of footage. I can share this with you. This is reported to be a North Korean Bullseye 4 anti-tank guided missile. Now, this is fired from a, I don't think it's tracked. I think it's a wheeled vehicle with 12 launchers in it. But this footage takes place here. Or at least the impact takes place there. It's reported to be that by Russian sources that say the user interface looks to be the North Korean Bullseye 4. I don't know what the interface for the Bullseye 4 looks like. I'm going off of their report. I have no idea other than that. Here is the footage, at least, of an anti-tank guided munition that we have video feed from. I find it interesting that we see the feed break up as early as we do. That tells me that there's something going on in here to impede if this is a wireless system. I don't imagine it would be. Does anybody know if the Bullseye 4 is runs off of a fiber optic? Is it like a SACLOS or a like a tow is what's on my brain? All right. I think there's another strike using it as well, though. There is. Here you are. All right. I think we watched that a couple times through now. Here's the last bit of drone footage I think I wanted to cover tonight. Takes place here. And we'll put it this way, that building isn't there anymore. Some of these drones pack an absolute punch. This is a Ukrainian drone. And at least one of these strikes in here is going to be the one specifically. I feel like, there we go. Oh. Well, that's not supposed to happen. Can't park there. One of these FPV drones just absolutely dismantles a building. It's definitely not a small little explosion like that. I remember kind of scrubbing through this to see what I thought was interesting in it. I don't think that's... it might be this one. Yeah, that's it. That whole entryway there is just toast. And that's actually not even the one I was thinking it was. But that was the part that it was on my brain. There's another one that I must not have put down that hit like a hard point of some kind. And it removed the building. Like the building was not there anymore. And a lot of these buildings, though, people have this understanding of that the rest of the world has the same kind of drywall structures in a lot of places as the United States. And that's not necessarily always the case. There are a lot of buildings still very much so constructed from brick and concrete. And, I mean, we saw footage earlier, the Neptune footage, if you recall, where the Ukrainian special operations guy was sitting in a rubble of brick. So to see it reduce the structure in that way, man, I don't know what munition was on that, but it definitely did its work. Let's move into the general section that I have here. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9 more videos to go. I have a Ukrainian International Legion mashup of basically just machine gun footage. Don't know when this was recorded or takes place, but here it is.
Good morning, Vietnam!
249 with a CCO on top of it. 240. More 240.
That last mortar shot, excellent, excellent. Repeat. Fire again. Over.
Yikes, man.
How many meters? Good morning, Vietnam!
Good morning. We have more fiber optics here. I have this in our unknown or general section from Ukraine, where I don't know where this takes place. Actually, I do have a location here. Probably in Donetsk somewhere. Here you are. These are fiber optics targeting leopards, though. There wasn't any footage included of aftermath. Have no idea the efficacy of these, whether or not they disabled it. If they hit the power pack, definitely going to disable it. Neither Leopards nor Abrams nor T-Series tanks are designed for this type of a threat. And they know where to hit it. Who were they? All the report was is International Legion. Ronnie, have you seen CivDiv videos? We've interviewed CivDiv before. I'm very familiar with him. Why is the U.S. still producing Abrams tanks? Why would we not be still producing Abrams tanks? I mean, we also have the Booker program, which is totally a tank. Don't let the Army lie to you. All right. This is the one I was alluding to earlier. We have a habit of being conditioned by seeing only effective drone strikes. That leads us to believe that there are not currently, and there are not fielded, anti-drone capabilities. And that couldn't be further from the case. There are multiple layers of drone capabilities, and they can be exploited, and at times there will be a lot of successes. But what we don't know is what we don't see. And under most circumstances, we're not going to be pushed the stuff that we don't see. in this instance, and there is a basis for this. Not too long ago, I showed you guys a video of Russians intercepting Ukrainian drone feeds. It's not difficult to do. That stuff is past what's known as in the clear, in the open. It is not difficult to intercept the feed and be able to see what the drone sees. We've also seen Ukrainians do that. What you're going to see here are failures of Russian drones because of Ukrainian electronic warfare. Theoretically, there are the same types of failures on Russia's side. The reason we have this footage is that Ukrainians were able to intercept that feed, they recorded it, and they did a mashup on it, plainly and simply. Here is the footage. This one has been on the website for a couple days now. You'll note that as they get closer to certain areas, they kind of fall out of the sky and just kind of meow. So again, we have this, we are conditioned in the combat footage realm to believe, since we always see these successes, that's what people are going to push. Whether you're Ukrainian or whether you're Russian, you're going to want to publish your successes. What we don't see, under most circumstances, are Russian failures, unless, like in this case, Ukraine intercepted the feeds, recorded that feed, and then created a mashup, or vice versa. There are absolutely a lot of anti-drone capabilities that are being used to great effect across Ukraine right now. We're just not going to see that. Let's move on. We're also, let's go back to something I mentioned earlier. I mentioned earlier that there's a habit of people to say things like, well, we don't need artillery anymore because we have drones. Like, no. The reason we believe that drones have taken over for certain things that they haven't is simply that they have cameras on it. If you could put cameras on every single artillery piece, or not just piece, but artillery round, you would see that somewhere around 80% of the casualties being incurred by both sides in this war are still coming from those traditional casualty producers like artillery. Let's move on. Got some Mk19 work. Cancel that. Cancel. No, don't delete my note. That would have ended the stream immediately. We got some Mk19 stuff. That's coming up for you now.
О, поднимай теперь, поднимай.
You hear those impacts?
О, хорош! Давай засыпай нахуй. Добре, добре. Хорош, хорош, хорош. Хорош.
The crossfire? What crossfire? All right. Some high-angle Mk19 action here. This is one of those times that Josh wrote up an absolute banger to help describe the technique and the way the U.S. military tries to teach it versus, in reality, how it's really used. To be honest with you just kind of need an azimuth, and you need something to tell you where your impacts are, and you can walk this thing on target. U.S. military doesn't necessarily teach it that way.
Да, давай. Итак, наконец-то на нас вышли на зв'язок, работаем.
So they're engaging something that's pretty damn close. Let's put it that way. Correcting Mk19 with Leupold. How loud are those 40 millimeters? Not the Mk19, not very loud at all. Not very loud at all. A bump plan. Bump plan is basically when you run into trouble, you need to know exactly how everybody's getting out of the vehicle right away. Something you practice, you train it. When you're on top of the vehicle, it's pretty easy. You get the hell off of it. That's exactly what we're going to see here. These are Russians on top of a BMP, I believe it is, and they see a drone inbound, and the bump plan. Oh no, they're on like a van or like a truck. All right. These are Belarusian volunteers fighting on behalf of Ukraine. This is footage of them on an assault. And during that assault, they, as you would understand on an assault, they take casualties. This is another one of those videos that helps understand the reality that it's not Call of Duty. And direct action is in the context of large-scale combat operations in this way, especially against a well-fortified position, is going to result in casualties. Here's the footage. Discretion advised.
Братуха, терпи. Братуха. Ты сможешь сам выйти? Тихо. Тихо, терпи.
13-й, я 8-й. По нам ведется плотный стрелковый огонь. Нужна поддержка, прием.
Все целы?
Сразу говорю, это рискованно. Никого не заставляй, не хочет, я буду по-твоему десану.
Точка, окоп.
Подогнем.
Волновать нужны глаза, чтобы понять, откуда это крови.
Терпи, брат. Тихо.
Он тебе гранату попал. Вот сейчас. На гранату. 1300. Возможно, еще не можем вытянуть. Как приняли?
All right, let's come up. I got one more before the one more for you guys tonight. Because the second to last one more before the one more, we actually already looked at. It was that motorcycle drive and those Russian motorcycle team driving through that road with the anti-personnel mines. I had that on the list twice tonight. But this one, the reason I wanted to show you this is some extremely, at least by editing and at least what it looks like, accurate mortar fire. Discretion's advised on this one. I don't know where this takes place. Probably in Donetsk. Can't be certain. But I'm going to turn this music off. Some extremely accurate mortar fire. Discretion advised. Look at how many charges they have on that thing, too. Hello, Mr. Ron White. All right, let's come back up. I need to check in on the support and thank you guys very, very much for it. As always, stream is free. Thank you so much, though. John Maxwell, thank you for the $10. Are there any instances of fiber optic drones being used for observation or recon? Or are they purely, I'm assuming the rest of that says FPV style? I don't know. Not necessarily that I've seen, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So there could very well be instances that they're being used for that, and we just don't see a whole lot of videos since we're looking at an attrition-style necessity for the use of drones. I would imagine that they would, though. You know, if you absolutely can need to fly a drone up for a recon and you need that to stay up there because you have an assault coming and it's inside of the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kilometer range of that fiber optic cable that you have on there, yeah, why would you not? Certainly. I would. Makes sense. Compiled Tech, thanks very much for the 5. Have you seen the Honey Love video from a striker in Iraq? I haven't. At least not that comes to mind. I'm kind of I might have. I can't picture it in my head movies right now. Thanks very much for the $5, dude. Super Steve, thank you very much for the $5. I heard a rumor Musk is going to take Starlink away from the Ukraine. Will that affect drone operations? I don't necessarily think so. That would have a drastic impact on being able to communicate. Communication being as critical as it is. I'll give you an example of something that I experienced with the necessity of Starlink, and without it, it would have been horrific, even more. When I went to North Carolina to film and embed with the National Guard, as well as Savage Freedom's operation, some of the volunteers that were down there, everything was operating off of Starlink. Had we not had some form of communication like they didn't early on, absolute nightmare. Nobody would have been able to request support from anybody. And the same thing would apply here, just in kind of a more extreme situation. You would have no idea who needs more drones. You would have no idea who is where. You wouldn't be able, outside of walkie-talkie range, to really communicate because Ukraine doesn't necessarily have the infrastructure like a United States would, where we have satellites up in the sky and we have infrastructure, OE-254s, different satellite communications equipment that we can stand up. The 254 isn't SATCOM. It's, anyway. That would have a drastic effect on Ukraine's C2. I don't think it would affect drones directly because the drone is between the operator and the drone itself. That is the connection. That makes sense? All right. DC Williams. How did I miss that? For $100, dude. Ain't dead yet. Me neither, brother. One day at a time, man. Thank you for $100. That's a lot of dollars, dude. And thank you very much for it, bro. John, thanks very much for the $5. Ronnie's really spamming the dead body prank tonight. What? I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, thank you very much for the $5, man. It's 11th Airborne. Yeah, the Arctic Angels, the 11th. That's what I thought it was. And thanks very much for the $10, Arctic Angel. I appreciate you. It's the 11th Airborne, and it's also the 11th Air Corps or Air Force, isn't it? It's both the 11th, if I remember correctly. Anyway, thanks very much for all that love, guys. I appreciate you very much. I always have one more video to play for you, regardless of if the stream is over and you're still looking for another video. Even on the after show that we'll be doing here in a minute, playing a little bit of squad, raising some money for veteran charity. You're welcome to join us for that. The chat will automatically send you over there. I always have one more video that I can show you. I do want to thank our sponsor for tonight. Once again, there's a logo right here down in the lower left. It's to my right, but it's your left. Venture Surplus. Use the code. Go get yourself some gear, right? You don't need to be spending $800 on a bunch of new gear. There's military surplus gear that's been used for years to great effect, and they've got a ton of it, whether it's bags, packs, load-bearing equipment, the old flak vests. Like if you're into flak vests, there's a ton of people that are still into flak vests. That's cool. I've seen that stuff on there. Ponchos, wet weather gear, cold weather gear. It's rotational stock, though. That's the thing to always remember, because they don't make this stuff. They receive it from all sorts of different sources. So what's there today might not be there tomorrow. But to give you a little bit of an upper hand to pick it up, use the code FUNKER530. That's going to give you guys 10% off. We don't make money when you use that. I don't know why that matters. Some people, think that, but we don't. So that's for you entirely. Thanks very much for being here. Mike Check, thank you for the 1776. I got one more video for you. Panzer Schrack at home might not be the best choice for you. This doesn't look like it felt very good. I'll see you guys. I won't see you next week. Actually, I'll be on travel for my day job, which is National Association for Gun Rights. Support the Second Amendment, please, and thank you. If you choose to do that, please support the National Association for Gun Rights. But I'll be on some travel for NAGR, and I won't see you until the following week. So if you want to chat a little bit further about any of the stuff we talked about tonight, join me over on the follow-up stream. The chat will automatically recommend you to come over there. But this, don't do this, because it doesn't look like it felt good. Here's Panzer Shrek at home. Good night. Go be great and stay informed.
Все подключение, она в установке абсолютно. Все безопасно, так что отлично.
Пуск!
Bro.
Пуск!
The VA has determined that was not service connected. Good night.